What's up? What's up?
James, what's good, man?
What's good, Levi? Hey, you all. We're in for a treat today, just like every Thursday. We're coming to you talking about an agent that's killing in their marketplace, that's is making an impact, being able to add value to the real estate community. And I'm here today with Levi McDonald. Levi is my brother from another mother.
Yeah, almost another.
But we're gonna talk to you a little bit about like just team building. We both have built some pretty good teams and have had some pretty success for that, and we want to be able to give back regarding that in and of itself. But just kind of before that, the journey is always important in any type of process. So Levi, tell us your journey, man. I know we talked before about it with working at the was it Verizon or was it Singular? Which one of
Yeah,
those?
I was at Verizon.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so just kind of being at Verizon, getting into real estate, getting into this whole process. One of the big things that I always get from people, and it's like, what is it, or how can I transition from what I'm currently doing, which is the job, over into a real estate agent in and of itself? Can you just
hmm
kind of touch on that? Some of the things that you did, some of those steps that made the big difference for that transition for you?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And a pleasure being on here with you again. I appreciate you for having me on. But really the thing about it is consistency. It's just finding activities and doing them consistent and knowing what your end result is, knowing what the end goal is. Um, People always kind of talk down on a part-time real estate agent, or they talk about how part-time agents are not as good as full-time agents. The difference really is that part-time agent doesn't put in as much time, or probably doesn't, or they probably don't put in as much time. But in reality, a lot of full-time agents are part-time. It's not really about the amount of time it's not about the 8 hours in the day. It's about what do you do with that particular time that you have to progress your business and move it forward. You know, if you only got an hour lunch break and you got maybe 3 hours, 4 hours after work, what are you going to do with those 5 hours in that day? You can get a lot done within that time that you're not punching the clock. So, for me, and it got to the point where I was in the back of the store on the cell phone, trying to sell a house, and I got somebody out there waiting on me to sell them a phone. It was times where people couldn't find me because I was maybe coming back a little bit late from my lunch break. So all those things, because I was showing a house on my lunch, so all those things still come into play, but it's really about managing the activities that you do consistently in the time period that you have to do it. And that's the difference between a full time and a part time agent. There's a lot of part time, full time agents out here.
Man, I love that part of it, man. It's something I never really even thought about it because I mean, you look at agents that obviously they're not having the success, and and you always go back to their their track record, their work ethic, right? You go back to what they're doing consistently, and you realize that they're not making those phone calls consistently. They're not going out and reaching out to people consistently. They're not actually doing those activities for success on a regular basis. And for that reason, you're right. They're part time.
hmm
They're
Right.
full time part time agents. So
Absolutely.
I love that,
Yep.
man. That's a
Yep.
message. That's a message for some of y'all out there. That's a
Yeah.
nugget.
Yeah.
so,
And
so yeah,
I didn't know that, when I was still working a job. That's something that I really just came to the realization here recently, within the last 3 or 4 years. Like it's really about what you do. And we get thrown off by the verbiage and the context and the words and the thought process of the majority. But we just got to stay focused.
yeah, yeah.
hmm
So all right, so you make that switch. Obviously, you're switching over to the point where now you're a full time agent and you start having some success there. But like with any type of situation, you start to get busier and busier and busier, and then you realize that you want your time back. And
Mhm.
that's one of the things that I think a lot of agents that are having success, they're not they're not part-time full-time, they're actually full-time, and
Mhm.
that full-time becomes become an issue, because they're not paying attention, when their kid is out playing baseball or football or basketball or whatever. They're on the phone. They're not paying attention when they're actually out with their spouse. They got the phone in their hand while they're trying to order dinner. And
Mhm.
a lot of times, to be honest with you, if we're being real, they end up in divorce sometimes in those type of situations because they're not able to spend time with that spouse that they
Yeah.
need to keep everything going. Like, true enough, you the money is coming in like you wanted to, but that money is not being transitioned over to happiness at home.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Hey man, trust me, I've been there.
yeah,
I've been there. It's not a good feeling when especially if you are with somebody, your significant other is not in the industry and they don't really understand it the way that you do. But the worst thing that can happen, and it happens all the time, it happens more frequently than we know. Um, the business owner's business becomes the enemy of the relationship. And the reason being is because as the leader, as a team leader, the business owner, whatever the case may be, at the end of the day, you're responsible for everything that happens. And growth is a good thing, but it can be also a painful thing. Like when you're growing the right way, you're going to grow to a certain point where you experience different pain points. And the problem is, you get to the point where you got a lot of stuff going on, and then you realize that you're juggling a lot of hats, and maybe you didn't really put the thought process into, okay, once I get to this point, once I start doing this amount of business, these amount of transactions, like when am I going to input someone else? Like when am I going to add someone else to the team or to the staff or whatever the case may be? But it's growing pains. But once you get to the point where, I mean, we're juggling, and then once you can take one of those balls you're juggling and pass it to someone else, the workload is spread it out, and the job gets much easier. And at the end of the day, you make all the money you make, you do all the business you do, so that you can have a certain quality of life. So if we swing it back to the relationship or the significant other, at the end of the day, if things are handed off properly and if the team is built the right way, then it'll start to show at home.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And really, honestly, when you get into this business, you get into this business for that quality of life. You're not really getting into it in order to, not have time to spend with your kids. In theory, in your mind, you want to have more time to spend with your kids. You want to have more time to spend with your spouse.
Yep.
That's the overall goal. And a lot of people, they get fed, fed a lie. To be honest with you,
Hmm.
that's going to happen. But like you said, the business ends up taking over them rather
Yeah.
than them being in control of their business. It's kind of like, if you riding horses or something, the horse is getting away from you, and you don't know how to pull that horse and have that horse to make that left turn, make that
Yep.
right turn, stop
Yep.
where it needs to be. And that's really what you want your business. You want your business to be able to, run fast when it needs to run fast, but at the same time to go at a pace where it's going to be beneficial to you and your family.
Yep. Yep. That's the trap. That's the trap. And I say this a lot when I'm telling my story. You know, once I started really doing transactions and started really doing numbers, it's almost like I got to a point where the more business we did, the less time I had, and the more business I did, the more money I had to spend. So really, you were a successful person in the eyes of the business, but in reality, you were kind of like the same person you were before you even started doing any business,
Yeah.
financially, because all the money that's coming in is going right back out. So would you be better off selling 100 homes a year, or would you be better off selling 10?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, is it the same?
Yeah.
So
So all right, so you go through the process, you see this being a problem, so you start to go down the team model, and just kind of creating a team in and of itself, because like everybody, you want your time back, you want that life, you want to
Hmm.
be able to have leverage as well, in that situation. So maybe kind of like go through that journey, that you had going from that transition over to the other one.
Yeah, yeah. So you know how it is. Pain will cause you to look and search and start to try to find solutions. So the first thing that I did was I ended up being able to get me a coach. Like I got a coach, and that's another transitional mind shift type of thing. Like for you to say I need a business coach, not someone who I just talk to on a regular basis because they're at the company that I'm at, but somebody that I'm going to pay, and I'm not going to just be paying them a small amount of money. So got a coach, and that's somebody that can kind of look at your situation from the outside, because we can only see so many things by being in the room. But once you step outside the room, you can see a lot looking through that glass window. So that coach will. That was the first thing. Um, just kind of like being able to learn and establish a foundation for the business. You know, um, everybody when you're coming in as a real estate agent, you're taught to learn how to generate leads, learn how to close homes, learn how to get more clients, learn how to close more deals. But that profit and loss is not really talked about a lot. You know, um, that bottom line net sheet is not really talked about until you reach a certain level of success. When that really should be one of the things that you kind of are taught in the beginning. Like if you don't have any expenses, you're a brand new agent. Somebody should be talking to us about profit and loss. But anyway, the coaching came into play, and that allowed me to put some things in place. And then also that allowed me to understand that, of course, you need to partner with other agents. So being able to partner with other agents, bring them into what you have going on, and being able to share transactions with those agents. And it makes for a win-win situation when you can share money, share a transaction, share a deal with another real estate agent, while at the same time be able to share knowledge and share information with them that's making them a better person. And at the same time, you're sharing with them, but they're also teaching you because you're the team leader, but agents are coming to you with all kind of situations, all kind of things that are going on. And as a team leader, you're learning as well. So those are the things that I did. I got a coach, started to learn foundations of business, start recruiting agents, attracting agents to the team, and started sharing and offloading some of my responsibilities with them, and kind of use that as a point of leverage, and that's really where it all started.
Yeah.
And anybody can do it. It sounds it ain't hard. Anybody can do it. Everybody can share a transaction with somebody else.
Yeah. I mean, if you understand how, most agents understand referrals and, getting a referral fee, it's the same process, for referral fee. I mean, just
Hmm.
understand that aspect of it. But I mean, it's a little bit more work, just for the simple fact that, you do have to create systems and processes.
Correct.
The biggest thing that you said is that you got a coach.
Yeah.
I was listening to something that Grant Cardone was saying, and he had made a statement that most people, they'll go spend 500, 600, $700 for a car, go buy a house and stuff like that, but they won't take $200, $300, $400, $500 and spend for a coach, somebody
Right.
that's going to actually fix them and help them. Like your,
Hmm.
your first priority has to be to fix you. you
That's
know
it.
you can't go any further.
Yep.
My business started changing when my mind started changing.
Hmm.
When I start spending money, just the same like with you, spending money for my mind to change. Like your life isn't going to change until your mindset changes first.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that was like the biggest thing, and that's basically what you're saying right now. Once you had that coach, and they were talking about like things that that you need to do to be better in business, you became better in business. It's not a coincidence why you got it better in business.
Mhm.
Your mind shifted, right?
Yeah, and to your point, with that mind shift, it didn't stop with just that one coach. You ended up having a coach that was good at this. You got a coach that's good at that. Now you find yourselves in different rooms. Now you're getting on a plane and you're traveling to an event, a training event. People say all the time, like, man, you always gone. You always at some event. You living the life, ain't you? I'm like, no, I'm going to learn. It's fun. It's great to be around those people. But every time that I go somewhere, you come back and you implement one thing. And the majority of the things that I've implemented, I hadn't implemented them the right way. It hadn't been 100%. But if you just take one step, just start something. You're gonna fumble. You may fumble a little bit, but it's gonna be successful. You know, you and I are gonna be in Las Vegas in a couple of days at another event for a whole week. But it's just taking those opportunities and making that investment in yourself to get around the right people and get in around the right rooms. Your network is so huge. That's so important. The people who you're around.
Yeah, man, I liken it to like a jet. Or if you're on a jet and you're flying, right, and
Mm-hmm.
you're supposed to be at a destination, say, California, San Francisco, and if you start going a few degrees off, you're not going to end up in San Francisco. You're going to end up
Yes.
somewhere totally different
Yeah.
than San Francisco from that whole process. So
Right.
it's like what you're saying. It's like you're getting the information. If you make these small tweaks, like you said, if it's one thing, one little thing that you get from one of those conventions, or one little thing that you get from that coach, or one little thing you get from that person that's killing it, that totally changed the trajectory of your business. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're no longer gonna, you can go from 0 homes to 15 homes literally within a short period of time. You can go from 15 to or five, 50 to 100 in a short period of time just by getting that one little nugget and applying that in your business.
Yep. Yep. And then it gets to the point where you can just be selling 50 homes with your eyes closed. Like you didn't do everything that you could have did, and you still sold 50 homes. And you came from selling 15, you know, in a whole year. So that's how the big players do it. People wonder how the big players in the industry sell hundreds of homes a year. And main things that I hear consistently is that they stay in the right rooms.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
so so you got your team going, and obviously you had your admin person hire. You had your transaction person hire. Saying you're getting leads coming in. You're sharing leads with your team. You're doing well, and even with that being said, you wasn't as free as you really wanted to be. That like the leverage wasn't there. You're still not actually seeing the light at the end of the tunnel,
Hmm.
so to speak. It's
Hmm.
better. It's
Hmm.
definitely better than what it was when it was just you. But
Right.
you're still not seeing that big shiny light going forth. And
Hmm.
so kind of tell about that whole journey, and how that process looked.
Gotcha. So, yeah, team was established, things were going well, and they were going good. Bills were paid, birthdays was good, holidays was good. But you get to the point, like I was saying a little earlier, you get to the point where you realize that you're just like everybody else because if you were to be in a situation where you had 2 months and nothing could happen, nothing closed, you would be the same way you were when you were selling a few houses. And I think COVID was um, one of the biggest things that happened, one of the biggest revelations or whatever you want to call it that we all experienced, and we were like, wow, this it really can happen. Like things can really get shut down. Like you can be doing great and everything just stops. So there's some things that are out of our control, but I wasn't really looking around to do nothing. But the one thing that I done in addition to what I was doing before, like really nothing really changed as far as the process of the business. The only thing that's changed is that it got a little bit better because I started networking with more people, started training a little more, had a few more tools, resources, online stuff, technology, I should say, that I didn't have to spend as much money on. So that was great. But ended up, talking to you, man, and we ended up partnering up with EXP, and the difference was the model, like the way that the model is set up for the agent to be successful. Because what it does is, okay, going back a little bit more, one thing that also helped us, and it helped you in your business as well, the coaches that we were using, they taught us how to make more money per transaction, right? That when it came to like that profit and loss type thing, if you're making a 3% commission and you got to do a split with an agent every single time, if that's all you're making, your percentage is going to be, your net percentage is going to be what it is. Your profit is going to be what it is regardless. But if you are implementing certain things in your process to make more money per transaction, like if you're finding ways to make a little bit more than whatever that 3% is, then your net profit is going to be a little bit higher. This is kind of what happened by us joining EXP. We joined EXP, and the platform itself is set there for agents to make more money as they do transactions. And it's also set up to where you're not just worried about, once you get paid on the commission is done, you got that commission check. But at the same time, somewhere in the future, you can look and see profits. You can see money from that transaction you closed 2 years ago. And then there's also opportunity for you to just partner with so many other people and help so many other people. And the next thing you know, you're getting paid for stuff that you didn't even know was happening. But you're providing value to that agent. So that's really what happened. And when we got on the right platform, this company has changed the brokerage model. And once we got into this model, then it's almost like that's when everything just kind of skyrocketed.
Yeah, man. I always say, it's a change environment for agents. Just if you're looking to make an impact in your life, like a huge impact. I can't think of any other place better to be. So, like, just give a reference, right? So, you had your team, right? And on your team, how many people did you affect on your team? Like the largest number that you had on your team before?
So the largest number that I've ever had on my team at one time was 9 agents, and that's when you was happy to just sign anybody up that wanted to join the team. It's taking everybody. But
I think I remember that time. I remember you showed up to one of them events. You had all these people in the background. I was like, "Look at this boy! He's doing it."
Man. And it was profitable. We were successful. We had some very good times, and people were happy. But it doesn't matter. You still got that ceiling. It was still that limitation. It could have been 30, 40, 50 people. In that particular model, it was still a limitation. You're limited to those 30, 40, or 50 people.
Yeah.
And
those are 9 people that, for people that like that, you actually were able to share deals with, and you got, part of the commission or your referral fee, what a lot of people will say. So, so right now, how many people do you have in your organization?
Right now, over 630 people.
And how much time?
Not a lot of time at all. It's way less time. As a matter of fact, to be honest with you, we try our best. I hadn't even had a chance to speak to everybody that's in the organization. As hard as you try to reach out and establish relationships, it's growing just that fast.
So 600 and over 600 people, and I know I've been here for 3 years, and you came after me probably like a couple of months after I did, and but the number of times that you was at the other place, 9 was your biggest number. Now it's over 600.
Yeah, 9 was my biggest number when I transitioned over here because whenever you make any type of move, not everybody's going to move with you. Not everybody's going to see the vision. So when I came over, I only came over with 4 or 5. I think it was 5 to be exact. Um, and then when I got over here, a few of them saw how great that it was, and they decided that they didn't necessarily need to be on my team anymore.
Yeah.
In the past, if somebody leaves your team, you just like, man, dang, gone. Competition now.
Yeah.
But I celebrated it. I celebrated because in this model, they're not attached to my hip, and I want them to go off and grow their own teams and be as successful as we are. But yeah, I just looked at it, James. It's 637 people now that are in the organization, and I came over with 5, and I've been at EXP since September of 2018. So we just made 3 years.
So 3 years, 637 people. The other organization, what was that, like 3 years over there, right? Where you were before?
About 2.5 years.
So 2.5 years, 9 people. What's the likeliness of in 6 months you was gonna jump to 637 coming from 9?
Very unlikely.
Very unlikely in that situation.
Very unlikely. Yeah.
But like you said, man, it's the consistency part of it. You've been very consistent. You're teachable. You do the right things. You put the right things in the right order. You got a coach. All the things necessary in order to be successful. And the model in of itself is great, but it's the connection to the right people that actually adds that gasoline to take that model and allow you to go from 9 to 637. I don't even know what percentage that growth is within 3 years. I'm just gonna
percent.
I'm just gonna say a lot, man.
Yeah, but you're right. It's the people, and I honestly feel like this is the model of the future. I feel like everybody's gonna be doing it. All your big brands are gonna have this same model, but it's the people. It's the people. It's the connections. And I say this a lot too. The culture of collaboration is contagious because whenever it's just the foundation of the company and the model is that we're all locked arms and everybody wants to help each other. And it gets to the point where you talking to people, helping people that are not even in your organization. It's people that I communicate with that are not in that 630 something number that I talk to every day. And likewise, there are people that I look up to, and there are people that I honestly never would have even met that across the country, some in other countries that we talk to. You and I were on a call with Pierre Nadeau out of Canada about 2 weeks ago, and he spent time with us just feeding us knowledge, And this man selling 500 homes a year has grown an amazing team, and he joined the company after us. But it's just like that. It's the culture of collaboration is contagious. And when you're around people that want to see you win as much as they want to win, and you feel the same way about that person, you can't lose. It's a win-win. And it's a trickle-down effect. And I believe that it truly starts with the leadership. So like I said, I think it's going to be the model of the future, but the originators and the innovators didn't just build this thing, set it up, and they're not just sitting back watching it. Like they're implementing, changing, and innovating every single week almost. I mean, it's always something new coming down, and we're looking at it like, hey, that's going to be better, So it's a beautiful situation. It really is.
Well, man, I mean, I'm happy for you. Your success and everything you've been able to do. And I'm happy to be partnered with you.
Yeah,
And the people that you've been able to partner with, I know they're happy that they're able to get the success that they're getting because you can't get to your numbers without them getting to their numbers. So it's a collaboration in that aspect. So man, I'll once again, just let everybody know every Thursday at 11 o'clock. I mean, we're gonna be, just interviewing an agent that's killing it. Levi, if anybody wants to ask him questions about, how to build a team, how to build an organization, just how to be a good real estate agent in general, definitely reach out to him. His information is on the screen. You can reach out to me. My information is on the screen. At the end of the day, we're all about adding value and helping, regardless, what side of the aisle you are on, or what brokerage or whatever. But once again, man, I appreciate you jumping on board. And to the next one, man. And I'm looking forward. Here we go, Vegas, right?
Part two, baby.
Part two.